No.
Say when.
You're on.
Great. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our August Albany Port District Commission meeting. My name is Georgette Stephens. I'm the chair of the commission, and we'll go around the room and introduce ourselves.
Joe Coffey, Commissioner. Dominic Tagalanto, Commissioner.
Dave Williams, Port Security.
Jim Teller, Port Security.
Megan Daly, Economic Development and Procurement.
Tony Vassal, Maritime Business Development Manager.
Lynn Zaranda, CFO for Hire.
Patrick Jordan, General Counsel.
Richard Hendricks, CEO.
Okay, so everyone should have received a copy of the minutes from our July meeting. If there are no changes or edits, I'll take a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, great. Before I turn it over to Lynn to talk about our financial update, I'm sure she's going to talk about, but I want to commend the team and thank ESD for working so vigorously to release the grant funds. That gives us some breathing room, and we are also appreciative just of their partnership in our continued development here at the port. So I'll turn over to you, Lynn.
Great, thank you. You received the 29 forecast compared to actual results through July 31st. Really, there's not a ton to update you on, given the proximity in the meetings, but obviously I've now updated to July actual. I did a few updates to the forecast, but primarily it's the same forecast that you saw in June. Again, with the proximity from an FMT standpoint and so forth, there's not a lot of major changes that would impact the figures. And similarly to where we were in June, things have held to that forecast with that month update to actual. So we're running very close to what I had overall expected last month. Again, not a lot of highlights. It was, a primarily slowish month from wharfage fees and things of that nature, but that was to be expected for that particular month. Similarly, as noted, if you go to the bottom to the change in net position, all the way over to the right, last month I had predicted that we'd be just about 500,000 less of a loss, which I realize is an interesting term, but we discussed that last time, that the original budget did forecast about a $2 million loss, essentially, for lack of a better term. And I'm still predicting that at this point in time, so we remain strong. And as we discussed the grant revenue, you'll see about $45,000 in July. That really relates to the Tiger, and that's one of my updates. We're just continuing, even now that we're kind of past a lot of the larger Tiger reporting and drawdowns as related to the heavy lift and so forth. Anything that we're able to put in for, we're putting in for, and working to keep the Tiger flowing as much as able. We're continuing to work on the National Grid grant as well with CEG. And as was noted, the $4 million came in, which was to, I think, Chairwoman's report, fantastic news, because it was probably about 60 days or so ahead of what we had originally planned for. But we're continuing to monitor cash carefully, given all of the irons in the fire with projects and sequencing of projects and large items as related to those projects. So we're still monitoring cash, still keeping up on cash flow analysis. I'm pushing it out a little bit from 2-week increments to month increments at this point in time. We've been able to essentially reinvest 1.5 million in the investment account, but we're keeping that liquid until we kind of get our arms around, and I know Megan's working on this diligently to determine the sequencing and what we're gonna have coming down the pike over the next number of months. Are there any questions on the report itself? The only other thing to note, we are still, as I mentioned, looking at cash flow and discussing and would keep you abreast of any developments. With 4 million coming in, we obviously didn't have a need for bridge type of financing that we had discussed potential for, but long term, we are still looking at options to ensure, again, ensuring that even cash flow and things flowing properly through without having to negatively impact any large project expenditures. So we'll keep you posted on that. The CFO has been hired and will have a start date of August 26th. And she, myself, and Eileen here have already been in touch a number of times and continue to do so with the idea that she'll be able to hit the ground running. I'm kind of briefing her on some of these reports and getting her used to the types of activities and things of that nature, so that even though she won't be physically present until the 26th of August, she'll have some level of background, which I feel is important and will hopefully help her not feel completely overwhelmed on day one, as we're all prone to feel in a new position. I think that's pretty much it for the financials, unless people have questions.
Not so much on the financials, I didn't see that as an agenda item, but what's the timeline for the 2020 budget development?
We've made initial requests to the various departments. I think it was 2 weeks ago now, Rich, at the staff meeting. So we're in the process of gathering that information and starting to put that together. You have your September 30th deadline for entering a budget into the Paris system for the ABO requirements. Christine, that will be one of the things that she initially gets involved with. She has specific experience also with the Paris reporting. But my goal is to continue to gather the data and start putting a draft together, essentially, so that she's not starting from scratch, and then we'll work together.
When will the board see the draft of the budget before it's submitted to Paris?
I would need to discuss board meeting times.
We have a budget and finance committee meeting.
Yeah, it
at
would
the
be
next-
toward the
in
end
September.
of September, probably.
No, it's actually gonna, we have to discuss later, but it'll be more towards the middle of September for the
Okay.
meeting, and we should be able to, hopefully a week ahead of the, proposed meetings, depending on which day we can
Yeah, I
sign up.
recognize it's kind of a fluid document, but it's
Right.
good if we can kind of see it ahead of time.
Yeah,
Yes.
I should be able to get it to you at least a week ahead of either the 16th or the 23rd.
And maybe in the context of that, help us review that budget, as part of that information that you submit to us, to the board, maybe just a couple of points, like what would be the 2020 budget goals. I mean, I can send this to you if you want.
Mm-hmm.
2020 budget goals, are we looking at adding any new positions or staff changes of any substance would be a question? Any new initiatives that we're gonna have, and what the financial implications of that would be? Maybe just clarify what grant opportunities or new revenue sources we may have. And it probably wouldn't hurt in the dynamic of the world that we're in, cost savings measures, if they're out there, that you might wanna try to think about in the budget.
Mm-hmm.
Capital projects for 2020. And are we looking at a 3-year capital plan now, or is it a 5-year for the board? 5? Okay. You just kind of updating that a little bit,
Okay.
please.
Yeah, and those things have been discussion points, and we actually, originally, we were hoping even today to have a project-based meeting, including the people directly involved in projects, because not only do we want to know where things stand now and how they're gonna flow through the end of the year, but that was on our agenda, is to talk about what types of commitments and expenditures we're gonna expect to see for that 2020 process as well.
What made me think about it is the context, because when Rich was looking at maybe moving the meeting up a week or so, or a little bit, and then with the new CFO, it helps maybe facilitate some discussion by having these kind of points out there a little bit. So we'll have ahead of time, this kind of thing the new CFO could be thinking about as that person's coming in a little bit. So it probably just will help expedite getting things done.
Absolutely. And what I've tried to do with some of the forecasting work that I did too is design something that can kind of be on a rolling forecasting methodology, and reports that we can run from the accounting system that show a full 12 months of actuals so that you can see trends and things of that nature. So, you know, I feel like, again, as we've discussed over the past couple of months, that this is just so many moving parts that weren't necessarily always in place, that I think to your point, it's just that step up and need to really review things. Thank you.
Anything else for Lynn? If not, we'll turn it over to Rich to give us an update.
We hosted a U.S. Coast Guard meeting here on maritime security recovery. If we were to experience any kind of an incident between here and New York City, we included all of the terminals that we interface with. It was a successful meeting. The Coast Guard, in fact, sent me a note today thanking us for hosting and looking forward to the next ones. Tomorrow night, I've been invited by the University of Delaware to participate in a trip to the Block Island Wind Farm, just so we can get an idea as to what that is. Leaving out of North Kingstown, Rhode Island. The Block Island Wind Farm is the only operating farm on the East Coast. It's much smaller than what is proposed for all of the others, but just to get a feel for what it is we need to do to make ourselves ready for the opportunities that exist. I had a meeting last week with the owner of the Port of Clemens to discuss mutual things we can do for this offshore wind, and how we can both benefit, as well as what we need to do separately. And we're moving forward on a couple other points of business that we'll discuss later in executive session.
Is there any other real property development update for this one?
I think I just would make it public that tonight the town of Bethlehem will have a special meeting to set the public presentation related to the GEIS for our port expansion. It will be September 3rd. Will be the full presentation. The planning board of Bethlehem accepted the draft last week. So we're moving forward. It's out to the public entities, it's out to the public for input or comment.
Is that what you're doing, or?
Yeah, 6 o'clock, yeah. Tonight is 5 o'clock, but this should be quick, but the public presentation is 6 o'clock on September 3rd.
Any questions?
No.
All right, so next, everyone She received Resolution 11-2019, and this is a motion to authorize the Chief Executive Officer to execute a memorandum of understanding between the Albany Port District Commission and the City of Rensselaer regarding the payment of financial assistance for tax-exempt properties in the City of Rensselaer. So we've talked about that would be a very similar formula that we use currently with the City of Albany. So if there are no questions, I'll take a motion.
I'll move that we adopt resolution 11, 2019.
I probably should second it.
Yes.
I have a vote on that.
No. All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Dominic?
The only thing I would suggest too, that the treasurer sign that.
So, oh, yes, right, because Dominic is our secretary. So, right, given your relationship with the city, we'll have Joe sign the resolution.
That's good.
Okay.
And this is considered for the calendar year of 2019, so
Yes.
paid quarterly, but we should do a catch-up then?
We'll catch up, so we're probably in the
Third quarter,
yeah.
okay.
Okay, and so included in your packet is also a report from, right, Tech Two? Talking about all the cybersecurity they've been providing to us, the maintenance of our computer equipment.
We didn't intend on going into it.
It was pretty, I thought the report was pretty self-explanatory. It seems like we're getting some really good coverage
They are.
and some preventative.
Yep,
Yeah.
they're certainly buttoning up anything, everything they see, they're with a couple of us almost on a daily basis. That's not what they're doing, looking at, patching on the system.
So you're getting direct reports from them directly of attempted efforts for phishing or other invasive?
Yes.
Have we been able to identify any activities on our end that we need to do for further staff education as a result of those efforts?
Nothing since our initial meeting with everything.
That's good.
The big thing is constantly pounding in the people not to open attachments if you're unfamiliar with them, or
They've done several internal phishing expeditions of our staff.
One of the things that the city did that I thought has been helpful, when we would get emails coming in, there'd be a thing on the bottom, attention, something that the emails from the external source. What they did, they've now put that up on the top. So if the email's coming in outside the domain, they have it right outside that says attention to emails from the external source. So it really makes you go,
Sure. Do I hit this?
do I hit that? So before you wouldn't see that until it's at the end. So they put it up front as a suggestion. We want to see if that was helpful for unreasonable messages.
So when you're looking at your phone at 3 o'clock in the morning,
You see the attention and better see it if you don't have your glasses on.
so I think they.
Are you saying anything happened?
Yeah. It is helpful.
No, especially given the attack the city. So thank you, we appreciate you guys taking it seriously, and that sounds like Tech Two has really been a nice addition to the team in that way. All right, so Tony's going to talk about maritime activity at the port.
Okay, thank you, Chairperson Stebbins. First, I'm going to cover the results, ships, barges, tonnage, longshore hour reports, comparing January to July 18 versus 19. Ships and barges, last year through July 18, we handled 39 ships and barges. This year, 18, reduction of 21 or 54%. And as mentioned previously, the basic reason for the reduction is we had the two major projects last year, Cricket Valley and Fairview in Johnstown, PA. The one big project we were anticipating in Ohio has been in litigation, and we're looking at that for 2020. Because we handled 27 ships and barges last year in heavy lift project cargo, and 8 this year, down 19, 70%, and that's attributed to those 2 projects. On a tonnage standpoint, at 185,700 through last year, 130,000 this year, down around 56,000, or 30%. Now, what market areas? Heavy lift project cargo is down 23,000, 86%. Scrap iron at the present time is down 28,000, or 25%. We have a bright spot. The wood pulp is up from 23,700 up to 40,700, up 17,000 tons, or 72%. Now, the longshore hours, last year were a little over 34,000. This year, a little over 19,000, a reduction about 14,700, or 43%. Once again, attributed to project situation. Now, just to cover an overview. As mentioned last month, in the heavy lift and project cargo sector, the 3 major power generation manufacturing companies are going through turbulent times, not only in the marketplace worldwide, but within their own organizations. Projects have been moved back, some have been canceled. Third quarter is going to continue to be slow. Fourth quarter, we see an uptick. Was in Philadelphia last week and met with a third-party logistics company, heavy lift project cargo, and we're working on, Bill Ring and I were working on a project with them for 8 months now. And so they indicated that in early September, a vessel would be leaving the port of Dalian, China, 60-day transit time to here. She'll be discharging 2 large transformers and 30 to 40 truckloads of affiliated equipment going to western New York. Now, that was a very competitive situation. The lakes were heavily involved and other ports, and at this point in time, it looks like we have it. I mentioned that, well, there's another large project that we thought was going to take place in northeastern Pennsylvania, and it falls under that category. We're slowly being moved back. There's no real word as to when the trigger is going to be pulled or we're going to see anything. We are going to see some domestic shipments of transformers to Florida during the fourth quarter. Switching over to the pulp or the forest products markets, overall basic downturn globally. We're in a good position. Our transit sheds and warehouses are full, and in this respect, it's so good, it's bad, because a major customer who had been ordering 4 boxcars a week, next week they'll be ordering 8. So over the next month, they're going to use up or take out about 3,000 tons of inventory. However, that probably isn't enough, because we anticipate a pulp ship in September with 5,000 to 8,000 tons. So we're, it's good, but difficult. Hopefully, some other business will come about on the pulp end. Now, another item, Ro-Ro. Our Ro-Ro ramp will be operational. We're working on a marketing program, also working with Federal Marine Terminals on an overall joint marketing program that will also include the Break Bulk Conference in New Orleans in October. Houston, right.
Tony's favorite place, New Orleans, right? It's your favorite place, New Orleans.
Yeah, I guess
You got New Orleans
psychologically
on
it
the
came
brain,
out.
yeah.
Well, they have another Break Bulk Conference in New Orleans.
Oh, they do.
So, and they're trying to start a 3rd Break Bulk Conference. Someone knows it's kind of oversaturation in the market,
Yeah,
and the
right.
market's only this big right now.
Right.
The railroad got nice attention in the media.
It did, it was
a couple
really
weeks
nice
ago.
article, yeah.
I got a question, Tony.
Yes,
On
sir.
the transformer shipments from China, could they be delayed at all because of the tariff situation?
It's possible, but according to the individual in meeting with them last week, they've chartered a ship. They have a ship carrier. No vessel has been nominated as yet. But it's a good question, because a lot of other projects have been moved back or canceled. So we really not 100% certain.
I think they're playing a little bit of chicken with that. Who's going to blink?
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering.
Not a little bit, a lot.
Just waiting until, I think it's a pretty substantial tariff on that.
2020, we're positive at this point in time because some of the projects have been moved back in the overall situation, but a lot of things going on out there. Because if you go back to the late 90s, there was a term that was coined, globalization. And globalization has been taking place for the last 20 plus years. Just recently, they came out with they coined a new phrase, slowbalization, meaning, seeing a downturn in the global economy, not moving in the direction that it has been. Why could be attributed to a lot of the reasons, but one word, uncertainty.
Well, I got another word. It's with a T. Yeah, it's,
Well,
I think I saw something today that they're saying they're even starting to talk about a recession, right?
now they've been talking about a recession
Yes.
for a
well,
while.
the interest
Getting
rates are
ready.
inverting interest rates again, and it's not good.
Right.
It's not good.
That's it. Any
Yeah,
questions?
no, thank you, Tony, that was really, your synopsis of what's happening, internationally is, very helpful. So thank you. Is there any other questions for Tony or any other business?
Other business, just in your folders, the investment guidelines, which should have been handed out at the finance meeting last time. I'm giving these to you just for informational purposes. They need to be approved yearly. Before Eric left, his intention was to have no changes made, and I should have given it to you at the last meeting. If you could look them over, if you agree with Eric, then at the next meeting, or if you don't agree with Eric, or you want to talk to the new CFO when she comes on.
We get any recommendations from T. Johnson at all?
As far as I know, they did not want to make any changes, so that was,
Well, that would be
that's what
looking
came out,
at-
and that's what came out
I
of
would be
Eric.
looking,
Sure,
might be helpful just to get a little note from them.
sure. I know that Eric had discussed it.
We have so many new people, and
Yeah.
just to get some formal thing, it's
Yeah.
from Bob Anderson or somebody.
It just
maybe-
To a
needed-
degree, you're very limited anyway, so they don't have the same leeway that, a lot of non-public authority type entities have, but, they've worked as best as they can within the overall maximum guidelines.
So maybe for the budget and finance committee meeting, we can have this as an agenda item, and then the new CFO can have
It's
talks.
Pro forma.
It's supposed to be
Yeah,
adopted
right.
before the end of the year, actually, within 90 days, end of
Right.
the fiscal year, so September would be.
Okay, great. Thank you.
But you did remind me that actually Eric did say about waiting on it.
Okay.
For the business.
So I know we do have a couple items to discuss in executive session, and they are for the proposed acquisition, sale, or lease of real property. So I'll take a motion to enter executive session.
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Your birthday. You can't mess
Yeah,
with it.
right. Your family.
You're the queen. Come on.
I wish it really worked that way.
Number 12. Resolution 12.
So they will be 13.
Almost spiritual, like I never had the name is title. Get the steak out. Good work. Keep cooking it.
Right. Okay, great. All right, so we're out of executive session and we have 2 items for business. I will take a motion to accept resolution 12-2019 for a 2-acre parcel on the Port of Rensselaer adjacent to Riverside Drive. That's what we're discussing. And so it's the disposition of the parcel to Rensselaer Iron and Steel is in the best interest of the Port District Commission, and we authorize the CEO to execute any documents necessary, including the filing of a statutory 90-day statement to effect the disposition of the parcel for the terms described above at a lease rate of not less than the appraised value of the parcel. So, that's the motion.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we have one more, resolution 13-2019. And so it is for the sale of 900 South Pearl Street. It's a 9.14 acre property, and it would allow the CEO to execute any documents necessary towards the purchase with TJCA LLC at an offer of $1.610 million, as well as allow the CEO to negotiate the deposit and due diligence period. Anything you need to include in
Just to be clear that that entity is doing business locally as Patriot.
So we authorize the CEO to execute any necessary documents. That's my motion.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any other business? If not, I just want to note 2 changes. The September and October board meetings have been changed. So the September Albany Port District Commission meeting will be Monday, September 23rd at 12:30. And the October meeting will be Monday, October 23rd at 12:30 as well.
Wednesday, right?
Oh, Wednesday, I'm sorry, the 23rd of October is a Wednesday. Thank you,
The
sorry.
September meeting, you're also going to finance meeting.
Good, yeah.
Before
Are
11.
we usually? Oh, the,
No, I don't say
if there's no other business, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second, all in favor? Aye.